I know you've seen those viral videos, the dog with the service dog vest on, walking through the big box store with no leash in sight. But here's the thing. Off-leash service dog work should be the exception and not the flex. And yeah, we've all seen who's usually the star of these little social media shows. So let's talk about off-leash service dog work, what to consider, safe accommodations and alternatives, and why it might be making public access harder for the rest of us. Hi, I'm Laura from Doggy U, and I'm a certified guide dog mobility instructor, service dog trainer, and trick trainer. And today we're going to talk about off-leash service dogs. Before we dive in, I want to be clear. Everything I'm about to share comes from my personal experiences and opinions, shaped by over 15 years of working as a guide and service dog trainer and handler. You might not agree with all of it, and that's totally okay. But I know a lot of young and newer service dog handlers follow my channel, and recently there's been a rise in videos featuring off-leash service dogs. And you need to know that that trend doesn't reflect the broader service dog community. So with that in mind, let's talk about it. Off-leash service dog work should only happen when it's actually necessary and not for show and not because it looks cool. Even a really well-trained dog is still a dog and can be unpredictable at times. I don't know a single handler who can honestly say their dog has never made a mistake while vested. And a loose dog who makes a mistake increases the risk for everyone, the dog, the handler, and the general public. And even if the dog is super well-trained and it never, ever, ever makes a mistake, it still makes people uncomfortable. And some people are legitimately afraid of dogs, a lot of times for very good reason. And while other people's fear shouldn't mean that we don't use our service dog in the ways that we need to use our service dog, it does mean that we should be considerate of others and not do things that scare them unnecessarily. It's the same reason that I leash my dog when I'm out hiking and I see another person or a person and a dog approaching. My dog can heel off lead on cue without any issue and ignore the passing person, but me leashing the dog makes that other person feel more comfortable because I have the dog under physical control. And the same should go for service dogs. And if your dog is so well trained that it can heel off leash, then it should be well trained enough that heeling on leash isn't a nuisance. Plus, if we're being honest, half of these off-leash service dog videos, the dog's wearing an e-collar and the handler is holding the remote in their hand. If you have the hand to hold the remote, then you have the hand to hold the leash. The risks of off-leash service dog work. The other unfortunate problem is it does set a bad example for handlers who maybe have less control than you do over your off-leash service dog. Or it can make people think that the goal is to have their service dog off-leash and to take unnecessary risks. Look, we all know it, off-leash work gets views, so influencers do it a lot to get eyeballs on their stuff. And that means that when they're doing it in a service dog vest, a lot of the time it's to flex or to show off their training and not because it's actually necessary. And it generally follows a common pattern of using a scary dog privilege breed like a German Shepherd dog or a Malinois or a Rottweiler out in public, lots of people around watching the person doing this work off-leash. I actually witnessed this like a decade ago at an airport where this guy was parading around his Malinois off leash in his competition heel until, oops, the dog made a mistake and left the handler and ran up to this little dog in a carrier, which could have completely been avoided if the guy was just using a leash and still showing off his fancy heel. But I'm guessing that they cut that part from the video. And look, we all flex sometimes. We're people, we're trainers, we're proud of the hard work that we put into training a service dog. But that flex should not come at the expense of others. Impact on the service dog community. The reality of off-leash service dogs is it can make the public more suspicious and less trusting. The bottom line is that some people are afraid of dogs, and off-leash service dogs can make the public more weary and nervous around service dogs. It also leads to unnecessary scrutiny of service dog teams. So because this security guard had to talk to the last guy about his off-leash service dog, now when you come in, you're under further scrutiny because the guy had a bad interaction with the last person. Now, having your service dog off-leash could be legal under the ADA depending on tasks and situation and all of that, but that's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is the people that are setting their dog up in a downstay on a crowded sidewalk in the city, watching people walk around the dog to show off their downstay and film it for social media. Having your dog in a downstay 20 feet away is not a task. Now, All of us may need to put our dogs in a downstay and drop the leash momentarily while we take something off a shelf with two hands, something like that. But what we're not talking about is flexing in front of a crowd so that you can prove that you are the bestest, most awesomest trainer in the entire world. I want you to show me that you're the bestest, most awesomest trainer in the entire world, but show me with your dog on leash in a downstay while a parade goes by, or while, there's a stampede or planes flying over. Whatever it is, there are ways to show how awesome your dog is without doing it in a way that affects the rest of the service dog community. Show me in a way that doesn't make access issues worse for everyone else. And promoting this off-leash service dog work also encourages copycat behavior and can make it so that there's dogs that are unsafe to be off-leash in public. Addressing common excuses and misconceptions. The first one is, my dog's a service dog, so leash laws don't apply. Not only is that not fully true, it's just not responsible. The ADA actually states that a service animal must be under the control of its handler. So under the ADA, a service animal must be harnessed, leashed, or tethered unless the individual's disability prevents using these devices or these devices interfere with the service animal's safe, effective performance of these tasks. And here's the thing. Most tasks can be done on leash. Sometimes that requires a minor modification like a change in leash, but most tasks can be done on leash. And if they can't, most tasks can be done with the dog off leash for a moment to do the task and then leashed right back up. So one example is needing them to go press an accessible button or to open the door. You could use a longer leash, you could use a flexi leash, or you could drop the leash or unleash them momentarily to go do the task and then return to you and leash them back up. Maybe you want the dog to block behind you or do the watch position, but you have limited dexterity, so transferring the leash to different hands is a problem. Well, you can teach the dog to move in such a way that the leash can remain in one hand, or they can remain, waist belted to you if you have a hands-free leash. So instead of having them come all the way around your body or going through your legs, you can have them go through and then back out and back into heel position so they maintain being able to be on leash without you having to switch hands or even take them off leash. Maybe you want to do crowd control, where the dog circles around the handler. If that is a task that you want to do and you don't want to have to switch your dog, your leash around your back while the dog is going around, there's a couple things you can do there. You could put them on a tab leash. So you drop the tab leash, the dog goes around, and then when they're done, you pick that tab leash back up. But I've also seen people use a waist leash and a carabiner so that the dog basically, the leash slides around the handler, hands-free. Go get help is another example someone might bring up as a need for the dog to be off leash. Now, I don't train go get help in public. I think a dog off leash in public is inherently more dangerous, especially if you are not able to handle the dog because you are unconscious or whatever it is. So I actually do have a video on how to train go get help step by step, but I use that only for in-home use. Out in public, you could do something instead like having a fall monitor, having the dog press a fall button, or even have the dog press a button that automates and says something like handler needs help, something like that. There are different options instead of having them loose and finding strangers, because that really quickly turns dangerous if you're near a road. Maybe you need your dog to retrieve something out in public or hand something to someone, and you can't accommodate the 4 to 6 feet that a typical leash is. Well, you could use a flexi lead if that's a task that your dog does often. Or again, you could have them off leash just to do that task, come back and leash them back up or pick the leash back up. And hey y'all, if you're liking this video so far, I would love it if you could head on down and boop that like button. Doing so positively reinforces me and lets me know you want more videos like this one. Tools that help you stay leashed. So I talked a little bit about the different leashes I might use to solve different problems in the last section, but I want to go a little bit more in depth in this section so that you have a lot of different options and can get creative about what leash might be most effective for the tasks you need your dog to do. So here's a few different leash setups that accommodate different disabilities or needs while you're out working your service dog. The first is a hands-free leash, and this can be great if you have limited dexterity or you just prefer to have both hands free. So that would be a waist leash that attaches like a belt to your waist and then to the dog, or an over-the-shoulder leash or a multifunction leash. Again, you have both of your hands free, and your dog should be really amazing at heeling because you're telling me that they can heel so well that they can do it off leash, so they should not have an issue with heeling next to you on a hands-free leash. Next is a tab leash or a traffic handle or a short leash. If you have a task that you believe needs to be done off leash, and I would assess whether or not it actually needs to be done off leash, but if you do, you can use a tab leash that's going to be shorter and you're just going to pick up while you're heeling because your dog is, heeling next to you. You don't need a long leash for that. They're heeling next to you. You need them to go out and do a task or circle around you for crowd control, whatever. You drop the leash while they're doing the task and then you easily pick it back up. If I am going to use like a shorter leash and not a tab handle, I do like to have them wear a vest that has maybe like a handle on the back of the vest so that I can tuck that leash in if I need to. Another version of a hands-free leash is for wheelchair users. They make a short little ring where it's a leash that has a ring and then the ring just goes on a little hook. That's one of the setups. There's a variety of different setups like this, but the ring goes over the hook. If they need to, they can unclip the ring easily from that hook. It just slides up and off. The dog does the task. The ring slides back on. And then you can also use flexi leads. I know, the dreaded flexi lead. If you really have that much of a stigma around it, you can also use a bungee leash if you're worried about like tripping over the leash. A bungee leash can sometimes work if they need to be able to go out a short distance. Anyway, you can use a flexi to get a lot of distance while still keeping the dog on leash. They even make little ones that can attach, like they're usually made for hiking. It's a tiny little flexi. Now, I recommend if you're going to use a flexi to always attach that to a harness and not to a collar so that the dog isn't getting just a bunch of pressure, like a small amount, but pressure on their neck all the time, because that's how flexis work, is a little bit of pressure all the time. So I would attach that to a well-fitted harness. And so like even the little one, you can just pull out that little flexi leash, use it while your dog is heeling, and then it just retracts right back in when you need them to go out and task. So those are just some of the setups I've used to accommodate different disabilities and different tasks that need to be done, but I'm sure there are more out there. So if you have one that I didn't mention, feel free to put it down in the comments so everyone else can check it out too. So some final thoughts. Off-leash work shouldn't be done just because the handler prefers it. It should only be done when necessary to complete the task and only for the duration of that task. And while there are some very rare exceptions, 99.9% of tasks can be done on leash or with very brief periods of the dog being off leash and then releashed. At the end of the day, leashing your service dog whenever possible isn't about the law or about training standards. It's about being considerate of the world around us. Keeping your service dog on leash whenever possible helps ensure that everyone feels safe, respected, and able to just go about their day just like we hope to do with our service dogs. All right, y'all, I know you've got some opinions on this one, so I would love to read them down in the comments. You all have an awesome day and check out this video next.